Atlanta Business Chronicles Biz. Sponsored by Georgia Power and Go Beyond Profit.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. We begin with headlines. Work is underway to create the best public space in Midtown. Atlantic Station wants to double the size of its Central Park. Plans include a signature fountain, new restaurants and shops. The park project could be open next fall. Atlantic Station is currently in the middle of a $500 million redevelopment and expansion that includes new shops, 2 new office buildings, hotels, and an apartment building. A company that makes suspension products like shocks for bikes, off-road vehicles, and trucks is setting up shop in Georgia. Governor Nathan Deal says Fox Factory Holding will invest $50 million in facilities northeast of Atlanta in Hall County. It'll include a new corporate headquarters and could create 800 jobs. Could Atlanta's reign as having the world's busiest passenger airport be in jeopardy? The new Istanbul airport in Turkey opened last week. Officials say it aims to be the world's largest airport. Over the next decade, that airport could handle 200 million passengers. Hartsfield-Jackson isn't standing still. It's in the middle of a $6 billion, 2-decade-long expansion of its own. Delta Airlines is moving forward with its plan to spruce up its fleet. It got its first Airbus A220 passenger jet. Delta will replace 25% of its older, less efficient planes during the next few years. The Atlanta-based carrier also marked another milestone last week, 10 years since Delta acquired Northwest Airlines. Well, Delta will no doubt keep an eye on the special legislative session that'll take place later this month. That's when Georgia lawmakers will decide whether to ratify a tax break on jet fuel. You may recall last summer, Governor Nathan Deal signed an executive order reestablishing that sales tax exemption. Lawmakers had rejected a bill after Delta said it wouldn't continue discounts to NRA members on the heels of the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Well, now that MARTA has approved its nearly $3 billion transit expansion plan, it has to figure out how to fund and build the projects, including light rail along the Clifton corridor. MARTA set aside about $250 million to build light rail along Clifton Road near Emory University and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Emory could contribute nearly $60 million worth of land and infrastructure, such as a new station and pedestrian paths. The Clifton corridor is one of the largest employment hubs in the metro that does not have access to transit. The proposed light rail would connect to the Lindbergh MARTA station. Metro Atlanta's newest toll lanes opened this weekend along Interstate 85 in Gwinnett County. The $178 million project runs 10 miles and connects with a 16-mile stretch of toll lanes into North DeKalb County. Just last month, the longest of the toll lanes opened along I-75 in Cobb and Cherokee counties. Demand for Coca-Cola's diet drinks, along with higher prices, helped plump up profits. Between July and September, Atlanta-based Coca-Cola earned $1.9 billion. That's a 30% jump in profit from the same time last year. Revenue declined 9%. Coke blames refranchising its bottling operations. During the third quarter, Coke also agreed to buy Costa Coffee, putting the beverage giant in direct competition with Starbucks.